say yes. I need you to do more and say less. I won't just say yes. I need you to do more and say less. I thought you knew that anybody can do that.
We're not really talking about Diddy dash. We're talking about our comfort with trafficking. More focus on him possibly being a power, or somebody being a power bottom, or him indoctrinating people into this sex thing, men and women or whatever. Not about the harm being done to the women who have been called everything but a child of God during this. I mean, that's the other thing. Liars and gold diggers and all of the stuff.
You can get okay. I was going to say you can get if that's always interesting, the conversation about these women want money, right? Like if I were in a car accident, right, and I got a settlement, nobody would have a problem. If I was harmed by a doctor in malpractice, nobody would have a problem with me getting money. But if I am sexually abused and I take a settlement for that, then I'm a gold digger, right? Like, and I don't understand how that even, like, everybody gets compensation for being harmed, except for when it comes to women, especially, but also men as well. But when it comes to some sort of sexual harassment or assault.
And see, this is what I mean by understanding violence of every sort as know your place aggression, because we live in a society that says that cisgender straight white men are supposed to be at the top of the totem pole, and then your proximity to them dictates where your place is. So we have to recognize how much we've all been taught this idea that certain people simply should have to suck up harm. Like that's literally part of how everything works. I was talking to someone who was very disappointed in the fact that I didn't have children. And he made it seem as if the fact that I didn't have children was like, oh, well, you're just footloose and fancy free, huh? And it was another example of how so often, because we accept the discourse of this society, we feel like women should be unfree, especially as long as they're in service to somebody else. Because his whole point, he was telling me about how he had children with 3 different women. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, why would I want anything close to what you're talking about? But then you want to flip it and act as if I'm some kind of immoral woman because I'm not latched on in the way that those 3 women who made a mistake of being with you are. So that's not a far-flung example to my mind, because what I want us to recognize is how what we've been taught really is about people need to know their proper place if they are not white, if they are not men, especially if they are not straight, especially. You're taking up space at that point.
Yeah, I mean, but it goes beyond that, and hopefully we'll have this conversation Wellness Wednesday as well. I'm going to keep talking about it because our friend Tanya Pinkins is doing Tony Award winner, doing a documentary on sex trafficking outside of the country. You know, we've seen this a lot. We don't talk about it. People go to countries, not just Epstein Island. People go to countries to have sex with young people, boys and girls, because they're not in this country. The clip that I played coming back from break was by a gentleman telling him to go to Russell Simmons's Bali Island. By the way, Russell Simmons got served last week. Hiding away. They may not have extradition, but your ass can get served. So there's that, 866-801-8255. And I'm not showing glee, but there's some of us who have folk in our family who cause harm, and we are again, to Dr. Karitha's point, forced to sit at the Thanksgiving table or at the cookout with the uncle or the male friend or whatever that has done harm. Everybody knows it because nobody wants to leave their children around them because it is, known that this person is a predator. And so even grandpa, even papa, some of y'all's papa touching the little kids. And and you just, not to leave your kids there. But why is that acceptable?
And Karen, I love it that you put it that way, because this is what I mean when I say being good and decent requires proactive moves. It requires being willing to have a confrontation. And what we think is that if you're good and decent, then you don't do the harmful thing, but you also avoid conflict. And what I'm saying is, no, if you have a vision for goodness and decency, it will require proactive action. And what you're describing is our unwillingness, our cowardice around that proactive action.
My mother was, I credit to her because she had no problem, hurting someone's feelings in order to protect me, right? Like, there was one incident though when I was older and somebody was messing with me and I like cussed him out in the streets, but I was like in my 30s. So and I told her, I was like, don't ever, try to let somebody, she was like, you're right, you should kick them in the anyway. But when I was little, we lived in a big apartment building in Chicago, and we lived 2 doors down from this guy who worked at the potato chip factory. And so he was like, oh, does she want some chips? She don't like chips. She don't even eat. That's our like running joke. She don't even be breathing, but come to find out, he was harming children, right? And when I was younger, she just was never, if it wasn't my Uncle Billy or my dad or my brother, she would never let me be an extended period of time alone with any man. And I remember even when I was little, I used to go to this daycare center, and looking back, like, right, you think about the things that you see as a child that just kind of feel weird. The owner's husband was tickling all the kids, right? And it's like, oh, that's heartless, but like, is it? Right? Like, why are you engaging with children where they know that that's something that you're going to do to them all the time? And I remember it made me uncomfortable even as a kid. Nothing ever happened to me, but I just remember like, I don't really like that.
Right. And Kyla, I appreciate the examples that are family based, right? Because to Karen's point, when are we going to stand up in our own families? Mm-hmm. And so I want to add the church example, because let's think about the power of creating a church environment in which women know their proper place. And because they know their proper place, how much more encouragement do they get to not have the confrontation with men who are in elevated positions who are doing harm? These things are not unrelated. So when you have a hierarchy and you feel like that hierarchy is what makes it good and decent and in decent order, how does that good and decent order actually contribute to violence? That's the kind of thing I want us to be more and more aware of as we navigate what Karen calls like creating the umoja, the unity. Like, we need to be on the lookout for all of us if we're going to have unity that doesn't rely on certain people's victimization and silencing.
And the onus is always put back on the victim too, which is interesting. Like, there's always more smoke for the victim than the actual person who's doing the harm.
Well, that's easy. And I'll often say that people are telling on themselves. When you have more, venom for somebody who's saying they were harmed than the person who has been accused multiple times. The Bill Cosby thing is a good example, because I was quiet first, second, third, but when it was 75 women, at some point you gotta be like, and I knew the rumors, right? So it was like 2 and 2 = 4 all day long. I don't care. The math is mathing in this case. We could love him. He could still be America's whatever, gave us the Fat Albert and the Different World and the Cosby Show, all great things. The art is great, but Mr. Cosby was problematic. 866-801-8255. And all of those saying he got out. No, he made a deal with the original prosecutor to not let his statements that he gave on the record convict him. And then the new prosecutor is like, I didn't make that deal with you. We're going to send you to jail. The only reason why he's out today is not because he didn't do it. Please do your homework. It's because the statement that he gave saying that he drugged this woman and sexually, assaulted her couldn't be used as evidence. That was the agreement that he made. So he gets out on a technicality, not because he didn't do it. Those 75 women, all of them aren't lying. All of them are not lying. And if one of them is not lying, and a jury actually did, after hearing the evidence and everything, convicted him. So come on, y'all, stop. Let's be more mature. Let's go to the phones. 866-801-8255. Fella's been holding on in Texas. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show. Hey, fella.
Hey, hello, Karen. Hello, ladies. Oh, wow. Yeah. So First of all, I wish I could have called yesterday when you had Sister Sophie and Brother Kevin in. Y'all were just amazing.
Thank you.
What I wanted to say, and I want to apologize because y'all have clearly moved on from what I originally called in about. But as the sister was just saying, it is all tied in. First, Diddy, just something short to say. No lambasting or slamming here, but a couple days ago, he crossed my mind, and I thought about Jennifer Lopez for a second, like ignorance or involvement. She got away, like she escaped from all that and lived her life. But did she know if you're living that kind of lifestyle and you're with somebody? I don't know. Past that. This bridge, this Francis Scott Key bridge. So y'all have been talking about this keeping your place aggression. It's this violent spirit of patriarchy that runs America. And Sister Karen, I often hear you talk about how the symbols of America is falling. It's, falling in on itself. If only a third of that bridge had fallen, I might think it was poetic for that awful Star-Spangled Banner Francis Scott Key wrote. But I'm really sad. My heart, it goes out to the communities, the families, the tragedy of it all. It's horrible. But symbolically, it seems like this cancer, this spirit of America, is eating itself up. And it's that same spirit that's behind, what's her name, Senator Britt, when she did the Republican response, how she called out that sex trafficking lady, Carla Jacinto, called her story out, using it for political gain and purpose and all of that, and got this woman all on CNN and then the Washington Post. That spirit using these sex trafficking, victims, because it's the same thing. And the last thing I will say, I go to Texas Southern University, and in my African-American lit class, we're studying Ellison's party down at the square. And that part grabbed me where the victim, the man, being lynched, was like, if y'all are a Christian, please just cut my throat. And the response was, ain't no Christians here, ain't no Jew boys either. We're just Americans, only Americans here. And that said it all. Shout out to Brother Ellison for that.
Brother, thank you for that comprehension. He hit all his points too. Fella in Texas. Let's head over to George in Pennsylvania. It's the Karen Hunter Show. Welcome. You're on with Dr. Caretha and hey. Hi.
All right. I want to touch a little bit on the Diddy situation. I don't expect you to agree with me, but I got a few points because I have a different perspective on young ladies today and this new hip hop rock star environment, which is, money, power, and somebody have I've heard of people going to girls doing whatever they can to get to them. And some high school girls trying to get, lying about their age or whatever to get to the star, and it just seemed like, I've never heard of Diddy being a child molester, but you have the one girl from Miami that, he have a wild sexual habit, and he said she liked to get peed on and stuff. I just think that, a lot of this is people actually trying to get to Diddy because he's one of the last remaining members, him and Dre, from the East Coast, West Coast thing. And I just don't believe that he's a child molester. I believe he's a child predator, but girls go overseas.
I'm sorry. What's the difference?
Well, girls go to the difference between what?
A child molester and a child predator.
Well, I don't think Diddy is neither. I've never heard of him, going under like an R. Kelly, little kids, and I've never heard of him holding anybody against their will. I think they want to be around him because of his power, and he won't.
We got your point. Play number 6, Usher on the Howard Stern Show, please.
Moved to New York City, and I lived with Sean Puffy Combs for a year.
That's the crazy thing. Now, that was L.A. Reid's idea, right? We're sending you over to something called Puffy Flavor Camp.
There you go.
To learn some Yeah, that's what it was called. And you're going to go to Puff Daddy's. He's
in the 90s. Do you understand what that's like?
Puffy's place was like just filled with chicks and orgying like nonstop, right?
No, not really. I mean, but hey, it was curious. I got a chance to see some things.
Yeah, but you were 13. What were you seeing?
I went there to see the lifestyle.
Right.
And I saw it. And it was but I don't know if I could indulge and understand what I was even looking at. It was pretty wild.
So nobody tried to, some woman didn't come along.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I didn't say that. What I did say is that there were very curious things taking place.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't necessarily understand it.
Uh-huh.
Biggie Smalls was there.
Smalls was there. Lil' Kim, Craig Mack.
All these people are hanging around.
Yeah, man. Faith Evans, Jodeci, Mary J. Blige. They didn't know nothing about this shit.
Oh.
I was having a good time. You know what I mean?
Does he have you doing any chores? Are you doing dishes at all? I mean, to keep you humble somewhat? Or are you just like, can you stay up till 4 a.m. with them and party?
I mean, I could. I actually stayed up longer than them.
Do you have money? What's going on?
I mean, I had like per diem. I had like,
what
like
a
living.
life.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
14 years old. You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy camp?
Hell no.
Come on. 13 years old. So I guess the 13-year-old is not a child. Maybe he didn't touch him. Allegedly, I don't know what went on there, but things went on. I think that, I don't know. And we could talk about Usher's parents, or maybe we can blame Usher's parents and blame him like you blamed R. Kelly's victims' parents for letting them, as if you're sending someone to a music mogul to get trained up in the ways of music. You don't expect your child to be exposed to all of this debauchery. You're not sending them there for that. You're sending them there to be trained by what you think is somebody that's really good in the industry, right? L.A. Reid, these are venerable people. And to intimate that somehow, Dr. Mitchell's here, Kyla Janae, when you hear somebody say, I don't know about anybody doing anything. Justin Bieber was also there. I think he was 14 or 15. Looking very uncomfortable, these little boys, by the way, barely with hair on their pubic region. Maybe voice hasn't changed yet, possibly. Boys, these are boys. These are not grown men. What do you say to somebody who, I don't believe he's guilty of any of this? This is all gold digging, basically. And I think that's what the brother was saying.
Well, like you even mentioned Justin Bieber, and Justin, like, you see the interviews and he just looks very uncomfortable around Diddy. But also, like, people think that power cares about boundaries. Like, power steamrolls through boundaries. So what is this concept that when somebody's 18, that's when Diddy's like, oh, okay, now I can harm them, right? Like, now, since they're legal, I can do illegal things to them now that they're legal. And then you think about like how being underage and like that pre-adulthood is still very like, what is backstage underage? What is it from the Belle Biv DeVoe lyric? Like, those are things that I remember that lyric and it was fine, and sometimes you like to keep sanity. I think I'm not going to remember the lyrics, right? But again, why do you think that because you don't know that it didn't occur? And that's a part of the problem with like defaultism. And then I wanted to kind of slightly touch back on what you said about Bill Cosby being America's dad, but also how perfect is that? Because again, we protect these people no matter who they are. They could be our dads, they could be our uncles, but because we love them and we love the patriarchy, or the father figure of them, we have to ignore all of the harm that they do. Diddy is a powerful person. He is the one that's in control. So why do you think that a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old is the one in control? He's the one in control. That doesn't even make sense.
Exactly, Kyla. And I think this is so powerful. I mean, because given the fact that Georgia and Pennsylvania tried to lay out all of the ways that underage girls were doing everything they could to get close, I think it's so important that we really think about power not acknowledging boundaries, because what we're dealing with is when you don't question American discourses and practices, then you think the purpose of power is to have license to do harm. And that is an American idea that we can question, but we have to question it on purpose. The other thing that we have to question on purpose is think, for example, Georgia and Pennsylvania, think about the society we live in that has made it such that the opportunities to make it professionally are limited for women. Why is it that sexuality plays so heavily when there are lucrative opportunities for women? Why? Because it's a way of keeping us in our proper place. If I show up and I'm not sexually available, then why the freak are you here? That is what American discourse and practice teaches us all. So we need to recognize how much we've been given that message and how much the point of that message is to make sure that everyone thinks of women as either whores or complete nurturers who are asexual and are mothering us and don't have any sexuality. That binary choice that a woman has to be over-sexualized or asexual, that is an example of women needing to know their proper place. And I want you to recognize that, George, as part of what feeds a system that makes sure that men have money and financial opportunity and women have limited ones, so that you can call us whores if we... Oh, I'm gonna leave it at that.
And you can exploit us.
Even if a woman is sexually promiscuous, even if a woman like Stormy Daniels gets paid to have sex on camera, doesn't mean she can't get raped.
That's true.
Doesn't mean that she cannot, be forced into a situation against her will and accept it because she knows how she's viewed. Because somehow no one's gonna believe that a porn star could turn down sex. And, I just even think about Meg the Stallion, and I believe because of her over-sexualized image that somehow there's no sympathy for her getting shot by somebody. Like it's like you deserve what happened to you, because after all, look at you, and there has to be, and I don't know what that is, but I listened to George. I called him brother. Somebody's like, he's not a brother. Yeah, he is part of our family. His view is very prevalent in our community. And either we banish people like George or we hopefully tried to have a conversation with him, because his way of thinking is not rare. It's actually probably more the norm. Y'all out there being real quiet, but inside you're like, well, you have it coming to you. Nobody told you to come there. You didn't come there against your will. As he said, I didn't hear anybody coming against their will. Cassie wasn't there against her will. But yeah, at some point, like, it's our responsibility to say, was she harmed? If she was drugged, even if she wasn't, you're still putting somebody vulnerable. It's like, I teach, right? I teach for a living. That's what I do. I, to this day, always have all of my students call me Professor Hunter, because there has to be, to me, a chasm between you and me, not in terms of a hierarchy, but that that we are in different positions and statuses in life. I have a certain amount of control and dominance over you because of my position. And because of that, I'm super mindful of making sure that I keep those lines unblurred for you, because it's easy to be enamored with somebody in a position of quote unquote power and authority. And to take advantage of that, to me, is the most abhorrent thing you can do as a person, whether you're a scout leader, a teacher, all in some of y'all's favorite presidential candidates have had this position as professors, sleeping with students. Yep. I'm just saying, like, Dr. Caretha, and I'm like, really? Some have married their students, and there's a 20-year difference. Do you think that that's an equal relationship?
No.
Do you know? Well, she's willing. She's an adult. Yeah, but there's not the same power dynamic. No more so than Sally Hemings could say no. Even though that was enslavement, it was a little different. But there's still that, and it's natural for a young person to be enamored by somebody who can give them the world. Ferraris and minks, and you're 19, 20 years old, and now you get to fly on a private jet, and you're fancy homes and swimming pools. Who's turning that down? Does that make you a gold digger? Or does that make that person exploitive?
Also, like, you think about like a 15-year-old, right? And how easy we as a society dismiss anything that they say because they're young and they're stupid and they don't know what they're talking about because they're a kid, right? But the moment it comes to sex, then they knew what they were doing, right? Then they were in full control. Then they were cognizant of of the actions. But every other time when it's easy for us to dismiss how they feel, except for when it comes to sex.
Right. We have, what is it? 21, the brain's not fully formed till 25, all of this stuff. You can't make good decisions till you're 25. What's a 13-year-old doing? What's a 19-year-old like? Really? This is what we doing? This is what we doing? All right, let's go to David in Florida. We could take some calls, as many as we can. Dr. Caretha's here. Got a guest coming in as well. We have Kyla Janae Lacey. David, hi. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show.
Hey, Professor. I have
first of all, I'm in agreement with most of where the panel is, but I want to point out an inconsistency. I was listening earlier when the doctor, I think, said how her mother always protected her from the people.
That was Kyla. That was Kyla.
They protected her. Now, when that other gentleman called a minute ago, even though I don't agree with most of what he said, when he pointed out, said, hey, where were the parents? Where were the parents? It seemed that there's some pushback. One of the problems that we have.
Hey, pause, no Diddy. Two different things. There's a difference. Yes, it is your parents' responsibility, but the parent's not there. So you're saying there's no responsibility on the part of the predator to not be a predator, to not be an abuser, to not be a sexual deviant? There's no responsibility. It's all on the child or the parents, David?
No. Would I send my 13-year-old son or daughter to live with Diddy, Itty, or Biddy across the country?
That's you. But shouldn't Diddy have a responsibility to not touch your 13-year-old if you don't have the good damn sense to not send your child there?
Absolutely. He should be put in jail.
What are you calling for? I'm confused. Are you defending it or are you not? Because you say you're not, but it sounds like you are.
Oh, no. Here's what I'm pointing out. You mentioned earlier, it's also in the church. And I'll tell you this. We all know we go to church. We have the uncle that you said earlier. What about
I feel like, David, you want to defend it, but now you done set yourself into a little corner. So you got a decision to make right now, sir.
No. You talked about the uncle earlier that everybody knows about, that everybody keeps quiet about.
Right.
Call him out.
That's what didn't we just say that? So I see the pivot. Smart on your part. Definitely. That's a smart pivot. I agree with you.
The only other thing I want to underscore, Karen, is the way that you so powerfully reminded us that these parents, if anything, are thinking that they're having their child have access to quality mentorship from someone who has professional stature.
Yes, now, I'm not necessarily sure all of R. Kelly's victims' parents thought that, or didn't, because at that point, the rumors were too loud at that point, right? Like, so, in that respect, they both
listen, Kyla. Parents will sacrifice their children to have parents sacrifice their children. We can talk about Macaulay Culkins or the Britney Spears. Parents will sacrifice their children to have a better life. I'm just watching that Nickelodeon documentary. Parents will put their children in situations if it means their life is going to be better. They traffic their own children. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the responsibility. We can have a whole conversation about that. But these are, to me, separate without a distinction per se. But yes, and I don't that think happens. We're not talking about that.
I don't think.
No, I don't think his mother did that either.
You ever see her?
I'm saying there are parents who do that. That I'm not saying Usher's or Justin Bieber's parents did that at all. I'm saying yes, but see how the conversation gets obfuscated by throwing something else into the mix and then getting us distracted to talk about something else, to not talk about the thing that we're talking about right now, which is our responsibility when we're in these positions. Yes, okay, the parents, this and that. Are you rocking with Puffy? Is that what you're saying? You're rocking with these people? Is that what R. Kelly you want to call up and defend? Come on. Like, do it with your whole chest, though. Don't be weak about it. And then tell on yourself at the same time, because really what you're saying is, I'm okay with this behavior because I may also have done this before. And I don't want to feel all of this. Because to me, I feel like I don't relate to this. So I'm good with having this conversation. I have no alignment at all with these predators. So I'm never defending them. To me, it's like, maybe I did something in my 20s. Well, you're going to have to reckon with that, sirs and ma'ams, because there's no gender when it comes to predators, right? But that's something you're going to have to deal with. But don't call up and defend this book. Ooh, okay.
What's the difference between boarding school, though? Right? Like, if I'm sending my child to
right. Don't you expect them to get an education and not be touched?
I'm sending my child over here for business reasons to be groomed, for lack of a better word, but groomed for entertainment reasons, right? Not groomed sexually. Like, it's the same thing as if I'm sending them to basketball camp. Like, I'm not that's not the expectation.
Take another call. Chef Quas has been holding on in Cali. We love him. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show. Dr. Caritha's here. College Janae Lacey. Hey, Chef Quas. Welcome.
How y'all doing? Hey. This right here,
is it a different nerve because, you know, like I told you before, I was sexually assaulted by a deacon in the church, and nobody said nothing until I said something. But my goddaughter was almost a victim of sex trafficking last year. She was 15 years old. And how she explained to me was that she was in the store. They was in Las Vegas. Her and her mom was in the store. Her dad, my cousin, was at the hotel. And they was being followed. And she said that they had some type of ear device in their ears, and they was talking. And so every time they go to the aisle, it was two men down the aisle, and they was following her. And so her mother immediately knew what was going on. So they ran out the store and they called a cab. And when she said that they followed that cab back to the hotel and they were scared to get out the cab. So the mother ran into the hotel to get the security in front of the hotel. He came and the guys came, they looked in the car, and when they saw the security guards come, they drove off. And just like yesterday in California, it was a big sex trafficking bust. And like you say, Ken, these hotels, it was at 2 Motel 6, it was at a Holiday Inn, and it was a Best Western. And I tell anybody, whether you have sisters, daughters, man, protect your child, male or female. Like me, my daughter, when we go to the store, I don't let her out my sight, period. Yeah. Because I know what they do. And then a lot of times, especially as young kids, they don't pay attention like adults do. You know, I watch everything. You know, I watch everything. They be in the store. Like I tell my kids, we get in the store, don't be on no phone. Pay attention. Anything can happen. Yeah. No cell phones in the store. No cell phones at restaurants. We're going to sit, enjoy our time, and go do our shopping, but we're going to pay attention, too, because they catch a lot of kids like that. They be on their phones, and they snatch them up. And so, like I say, to everybody, man, just be vigilant out there. And I appreciate this conversation because we got to do more. You know what I'm saying? We got to do more. We got to protect each other, and we got to speak up. It's like with Diddy. Everybody been hearing what's been going on with Puffy for years, but now everybody want to talk now. But then nobody want to say nothing. Why? Because they was getting financial gain.
Or they just didn't want to be accused of being against a black man. Chef Quas, I appreciate your transparency, and you know we love you deeply. 866-801-8255. You know, I'm thinking one of the biggest sex trafficking states is Texas, and I'm thinking about all them people coming across the border, all them young women, their children coming across the border. We already know the children were snatched up from the homes under the Trump administration. We don't even know where them babies went. They never gonna be reunited. No one's talking about that anymore. But how many of those women coming here are being trafficked? We don't talk about it, though. We don't talk about it. And it's uncomfortable because it's not happening to you until it happens to you. I think about that police officer who got sentenced to 160 years in jail for raping all of those women and because they were vulnerable or they were prostitutes, because, you know, you can't rape a prostitute. But he was doing that. And then he thought a woman was, you know, homeless or whatever, but she wasn't, and got caught out there, and it was a string of women. This is happening. Power has no bounds in this country. Power has no bounds in this. It's the foundation of this nation. And so either you're about this life or you're not. Well, we're not going to equivocate. We're not playing footsies with this. Just destroying too many lives.
I want you to say yes. I need you to do more and say less. I want you to say yes. Need you to do more and say less.